Hi everybody, in this podcast we're going to do a quick overview of all of the major body systems. So this covers standards 4.1 through 4.8. We're going to start with standard 4.1, which is all about the digestive system and how the digestive system's job is to convert our macromolecules, which is our large molecules, the things that we eat, and we're going to convert them into smaller molecules that can be used by cells. And we're going to use those things in the body for energy and also for repair and growth. So we use carbohydrates for energy, we use lipids and proteins for repair and growth. So the major organs of your digestive system are shown here. The alimentary canal are the organs to which the food actually passes. So it starts with the mouth, comes down the esophagus, to the stomach, your small intestine, large intestine. You also have 3 accessory organs which are going to help with this process. You have the liver, which makes bile. The gallbladder stores the bile that gets made, and that is involved with breaking down fats. Okay, so the liver and gallbladder make the bile. And then your pancreas is a very important organ for digestion because it's going to make various enzymes that are needed for the digestive process to happen. So these are going to chemically break down all of the foods that you eat. And then once everything gets into your small intestine, it can be fully processed. So probably the most important organ of your digestive system is the small intestine. It has 2 major functions. One is the complete enzymatic breakdown of food. And that is because of enzymes from the pancreas. So that means we're going to take those macromolecules and make them down into, break them down into their very smallest little components. So a carbohydrate would get broken down into a monosaccharide, or a protein would get broken down into an amino acid. The second very important function of the small intestine is the absorption. So all that food gets broken down, but it has to get into our bloodstream. And that happens through the small intestine. And then once all of that food has gotten into our bloodstream, it can then get transported to our various cells through the circulatory system. Okay, so our alimentary canal, the organs through which food actually passes. So we have our mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then finally the rectum. So remember, we do mechanical and chemical digestion in the mouth. The stomach stores it and liquefies the food into something called chyme. We break down the food and then we absorb it in the small intestine. Large intestine is for absorbing all of the water from the food, and the rectum is where we're going to store our waste until we can get rid of it. And then the accessory organs that we just talked about were the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. All these organs have to work together. Remember to break food down into molecules that can be used by cells. What we eat is too big for our cells to use. We have to break it down into smaller pieces so that our cells can use them. Standard 4.2 is where all that food is going to go, which is in the circulatory system. So we're going to take a look at how the circulatory system is transporting nutrients and oxygens and waste around the body. We're also going to take a look at the excretory system and describe how the kidneys and the liver are going to work with the circulatory system to get rid of mainly nitrogenous waste. So this is waste that has nitrogen in it from breaking down proteins. So your circulatory system, again, we're going to transport water, nutrients, waste to and from cells all around the body. We have to get all of these things to the cells, get rid of waste from the cells, so our circulatory system does that. It gets the nutrients from the digestive system. It gets oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from the lungs. And then extra materials and waste are going to get transported to the excretory system so we can get rid of them. So a lot of systems are connected. Your whole body is connected by your circulatory system. 3 major parts of the circulatory system. You have your blood vessels, you have the routes through which blood travels. The heart is going to pump or push the blood through the body. And then your blood carries all that important stuff around the body, which includes oxygen, food, and waste. Okay? When we look at your blood vessels, remember there's 3 types of blood vessels. You have arteries. Arteries are going to carry blood away from the heart. You have veins, which are going to carry blood toward the heart. And then you have the tiny little ones called capillaries. And they are going to connect your arteries and veins, and they bring the stuff directly to the cells of your body. All right, now connected to all of this, of course, is your excretory system. There's actually several different organs involved with your excretory system, and they all play a different role. So lungs are going to be used for getting rid of CO2. The liver is really good at filtering our blood of toxins. Okay, our kidneys are connected to our urinary system here, and so we're going to get rid of urine and clean our blood. Lymph actually helps to get rid of bacteria. Okay, and then skin, through the process of sweating, we get rid of excess salt and water. So these are all things that can happen through our excretory system. So the main job of the excretory system, collect water and filter the body fluids. That's what we need to do. We need to get everything cleaned out. So we remove and concentrate the waste products from our fluids, and then we return things back to the body as necessary for homeostasis. So sometimes we have to get rid of stuff, sometimes we need to keep it, like water. And your excretory system actually helps determine which things you keep and which things you send away. And then once we have figured out what needs to be sent away, we eliminate all of that stuff, which happens mainly through your urinary system. All right, standard 4.3 is the respiratory system. We just talked about how the respiratory system helps to get rid of carbon dioxide, but its main function also is to take in oxygen. So the respiratory system has two main jobs. We need to get oxygen into the body so it can get to the cells, and we need to get carbon dioxide out of the body. The reason that we need oxygen in and we get that carbon dioxide that needs to come out is because of the process of cellular respiration. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. Cellular respiration. Remember, with oxygen, we can get 36 ATP, and without oxygen, we only can make 2. So the reason that we need oxygen is so we can get energy. It is not so that we can breathe. A waste product of cellular respiration is carbon dioxide, and we can't have that build up in our body, so we have to get rid of it. So our major organs of our respiratory system, you breathe in through the nose. The air travels down past the larynx, which is also your voice box, into the trachea. Okay, and then it branches off into one of 2 bronchi, which then branch off into smaller and smaller bronchioles. And then at the end of all the bronchioles, you have these alveoli, which are little clusters of air sacs that are surrounded by capillaries. And that's where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide can happen. So the gas exchange is because of the alveoli are in close contact with the capillaries, so they're pretty much surrounded by blood in a sense. So the oxygen that we breathe in is going to diffuse into the blood because there's more oxygen in the air that we breathe in than in our blood, so the oxygen moves there. And then the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse out of our blood and back into the alveoli, again, because there's more carbon dioxide in our blood than in the alveoli. And then we breathe it out. Okay, so movement of oxygen, carbon dioxide in and out of the respiratory system. So we have oxygen-rich environment. It comes in through the nasal cavity, passes down our pharynx, also known as our throat, trachea, the windpipe, down into one of 2 bronchi, the bronchioles to the alveoli, and then we have our exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And then it goes right back out the opposite direction. So bronchioles to bronchi, through the trachea, out through pharynx, the nasal cavities, and then we are breathing carbon dioxide-rich air out into the environment. Okay, standard 4.4 was about the nervous system and how it mediates communication with different parts of the body and with the environment. And so we're going to take a quick look at that. So the function of your nervous system, it recognizes and coordinates the body's response to changes in its internal and external environment. So as things change inside your body or outside, your nervous system recognizes that and then comes up with a solution. So it collects information and interprets that information, and then it coordinates a response to the information so that you get back to homeostasis. The main functional part of the nervous system is the neuron. And the parts that you need to be most concerned with, you have the cell body here, which has all the cell parts. The dendrites are going to receive electrical impulses from other cells. And then the axon is going to send those electrical impulses down in this direction until it comes in contact with another cell. And that's how one cell will communicate with the other. So the direction always is dendrite to cell body to axon. And this entire thing is the axon. We have different kinds of neurons in our body. So sensory neurons are going to take information in from the environment and send it into our brain and spinal cord. Interneurons actually make up most of our central nervous system, and they connect our sensory and motor neurons. So the information would come in the sensory neuron, the interneuron would collect it and then make a decision about what to do, and then send it down something called a motor neuron, which would then tell a muscle cell or gland cells to do something like contract or release a hormone or something like that. So it always goes in this direction. So you take in the information, make a decision about it, and then make that happen. Okay, so neurons are found throughout the body in bundles called nerves. So you don't have just long neurons, you actually have bundles of neurons that make up the nerves of your body. And electrical impulses get sent from the brain to tell the other body systems to do all of their normal work. So the brain is sending out electrical impulses to all your different body systems and regulating them and telling them what to do. Also, you're going to detect changes to your environment and then make appropriate adjustments. Okay, so one of the things that the nervous system is in close contact with is your musculoskeletal system. Okay, so your musculoskeletal system has four main functions. Protection of internal organs. Your bones and muscles are both involved with protecting it. Think of your skull protecting your brain, your rib cage protecting your heart and lungs. Okay, movement and support. We wouldn't have our shape, the shape that we have, without our bones, and we wouldn't be able to move without our bones and muscles. Storage of minerals like calcium is stored in our bones, and that's important for a lot of enzyme reactions. And blood cell production happens in the bone marrow of our cells, and bone marrow is right in the inside of each of our major bones. And every time we need to make some new blood cells, it happens in the bone marrow, so it's a very important function. There's three main types of muscles found in the human body. Skeletal muscle are the ones that are attached to bones. You can see a skeletal muscle here. Cardiac you find in the heart. Okay, there's your cardiac. And then smooth muscle makes up some of our different organs. Not all of them, just the ones that can do contractions, like the stomach can actually do contractions so that it can churn our food into liquid. So it's a type of muscle. Your skeleton is composed of 206 bones, and they are broken down into two parts. You have the axial skeleton, which is this center part, kind of like the axis of your body. So supports the body, gives it balance, gives a lot of protection within here. Your vertebral column is protecting your spine, your spinal cord, skull, rib cage. Okay, so these are all important parts of the axial skeleton. Your appendicular skeleton are your appendages. Okay, these are the peripheral parts of the skeleton, so these parts off here that hang off the sides, that would be your arms and legs. And that allows you to do movements like walking and lifting and stuff. Without those bones, you wouldn't be able to do those things. Okay, so you need your arms and legs and the things that they're connected to, like the pelvis bone. All right, so you have to have both muscles and bones in order to move. Muscles connect to bones by connective tissue called tendons. And a muscle will pull on a bone when it contracts, and that causes the bone to move. And muscles always work in pairs. So when one contracts, the opposing one relaxes. So if you look here, if you're bending your arm at the elbow, your bicep is contracting, and the tricep, which is the muscle behind it, is relaxed. And when you straighten your arm, the opposite happens. The tricep is going to contract, and the bicep is going to relax. But again, it's pulling on the bone down at the bottom. So it's connected up here, and then it's pulling on the bottom bone on the bottom of the arm, and that causes the arm to move. All right, standard 4.6 is the sexual reproduction system. So when we combine two different parents' genes, that is the definition of sexual reproduction. And the only way to do that is to fuse the nuclei of two gametes, and that is the egg and the sperm. Gonads are where the gametes are made, so that's where the process of meiosis happens. So in females, the gonads are the ovaries, and in males, the gonads are the testes. And they're going to do meiosis, and they're going to make your sperm and egg. And when the sperm and egg come together, they will get fertilized and make a zygote. The egg gets fertilized. Okay, standard 4.7 is all about communication between the different parts of your body. Okay, so the human body systems communicate in various ways. Nervous system uses electrochemical signals. We talked about that. The endocrine system is another system here that is going to use hormones that are going to make target cells do very specific things. Okay? All of our different systems have to work together in order to maintain homeostasis in the body. So homeostasis, here's one example of everything working together in the body. So think about movement. Movement takes energy to occur. So the digestive system is going to provide food, okay, for those cells to get the energy. The respiratory system is going to provide the oxygen that's needed for cellular respiration. The circulatory system is going to deliver all of that stuff, the food and the oxygen, to the muscle cells so that they can contract. And the nervous system controls all of this. The endocrine system is also involved with this when the release of insulin and getting glucose into the system. So all your systems work together in order to maintain homeostasis. 4.8 is all about the homeostatic mechanism. Okay, so homeostasis is the maintenance of stable internal environment for the body despite what's going on the outside. So a homeostatic mechanism is going to monitor the body and then correct changes. So this happens because of three things. You have receptors, and they're going to provide information. So these are your various senses: sight, smell, feeling, all those things. Your control center, which is your brain or spinal cord, knows what the body should be at and decides if you're there. And then effectors are the third part, and they're going to cause a response to happen to make you get back to homeostasis. A lot of times this happens by something called negative feedback, and that is where a stimulus is going to make something happen that's going to have the opposite effect of what was the problem in the first place. So a good example of that is like when you're cold. You're cold, your body responds and makes you warm again, and it stops the response that it was doing to make you warm. So body condition changes, the body responds to the changes, and then it returns to normal conditions, so it stops the response once you're back to normal conditions. Okay, so we talk about this with the thermostat in the house. We have our thermostat set at a certain temperature. In our house, we keep it set at 68 degrees. Okay, so when the temperature goes above 68 degrees, right here, okay, the heating system is turned off. Room temperature will eventually decrease. So if the room temperature, let's say, decreases down to 67, the thermostat is going to sense that, and it's going to switch the heating system on, which is going to bring our temperature back up to 68. Okay, and once it's back to 68, you turn it off again, and it just continues, and your body does the same exact thing with feedback inhibition.